This woman never planned to fall in love. She never planned to stand in her sister's kitchen, in her sister's penthouse, wearing her sister's name like a costume she couldn't take off. She never planned to look up at a man she had known for less than 3 weeks. A man who believed with everything in him that she was someone else entirely, and feel something so real it frightened her more than the lie ever did. She came to borrow her sister's life for 3 weeks. Not to fall in love with her sister's husband, and definitely not to end up kissing him in their kitchen like she was the one who belonged there. But here she is. So how does a woman go from never knowing she had a twin sister, to standing in that sister's life, sleeping under that sister's roof, and falling for that sister's husband? And what happens when the truth finally catches up to a lie this big? Stay right here, because this story is about to take you somewhere you did not see coming. If you are new here, subscribe right now and hit that notification bell, because this channel does not do ordinary stories. We do the kind that keep you up at night. Let's get into it. 27 years ago, in a small hospital room far from the glittering towers of Seoul, a woman named Vanessa made the hardest decision of her life. She had 2 daughters, identical twins, 2 faces, 1 heartbeat, born minutes apart. Vanessa was running from a marriage that had turned into a cage, from a man whose love had curdled into control. She knew that if she stayed, she would lose herself completely, and maybe lose her daughters with her. So she made an impossible choice. She would take 1 daughter and disappear into a new life. The other, she would leave behind. Not out of love lost, but love stretched too thin to carry both. A wealthy Korean family, friends of a friend, agreed to take the second child in and raise her as their own. Neither daughter would know the other existed. Not for 27 years. The daughter left behind was given a new name, Hannah. She grew up in a world of silk and silence, the granddaughter of one of Seoul's most powerful families. She spoke fluent Korean before she spoke a word of English. She bowed before she could walk steadily. She was black, raised entirely inside Korean tradition. A daughter of 2 worlds who had only ever known one of them. She never wanted for anything, except the one thing money couldn't buy, a say in her own life. By the time she turned 27, her grandmother had already chosen her husband, Jisoo, the son of a rival business family. A merger disguised as a marriage. Hannah didn't hate Jisoo. That almost made it worse. She simply didn't love him, because her heart already belonged to someone else. A man with no fortune, no family name worth mentioning in their circles. Every night before the wedding, Hannah lay awake, calculating exactly how much of her life she was about to sign away. Thousands of miles away, the daughter her mother had kept, Zora, didn't know any of this. She didn't know she had a twin sister. She didn't know her mother had once made a choice that split their family into 2 separate lives. All Zora knew was that rent was due, her mother's medical bills were piling up, and the job she'd just lost wasn't coming back. It was a Tuesday when everything changed. A woman she'd never seen before knocked on her door, holding a manila folder and a photograph that made Zora's blood run cold. It was her own face, staring back at her. Except, it wasn't her. "My name is Hannah," the woman said quietly. "I think we're sisters." Zora stood frozen in her doorway, staring at a face that mirrored her own so perfectly it felt like looking into a cracked mirror. The woman on her doorstep was dressed like money, a long camel coat, leather gloves, hair pulled back so tightly not a single strand dared to move. She looked like she belonged in a magazine. Zora, in her worn hoodie and socks with a hole in the toe, suddenly felt every bit of the distance between their lives. "I don't understand," Zora said. "Sisters? I don't have a sister." Hannah held out the folder. Inside were adoption papers, a faded photograph of a woman who looked enough like both of them to erase any doubt, and a name Zora had never heard before, Vanessa. The story spilled out slowly, carefully, like Hannah had rehearsed it 100 times on the flight over. A mother who fled an abusive marriage. A split-second decision made in a hospital room. 2 babies, 2 lives. neither one knowing the other had ever existed. Zora sat down hard on her own couch, gripping the photograph like it might disappear if she let go. "Why now?" she finally asked. 27 years, and now you show up?" Hannah hesitated. This was the part she hadn't rehearsed. "Because I need your help," she said. "And I think you might need mine too." She explained everything. The wedding in 9 days. The man she was contracted to marry. Not out of love, but legacy. The man she actually loved. Waiting for her, begging her to run. Hannah wasn't asking Zora to fix her life. She was asking her to borrow it, for 3 weeks. Long enough for Hannah to disappear, to finally choose something for herself for the first time in 27 years. Long enough for Zora to step into a world of wealth she'd never imagined. If only as a temporary costume. "You want me to pretend to be you," Zora said slowly. "Marry a stranger. Fool an entire family. For 3 weeks. You wouldn't be fooling them forever," Hannah said. "Just until I come back. Then I tell them everything. I take the blame. You walk away. With enough money to never worry about your mother's bills again." Zora laughed, but there was no humor in it. "This sounds insane." "It is insane," Hannah agreed quietly. "But tell me you don't want to know what it feels like. Even for 3 weeks, to live a different life than the one you were handed." Zora looked around her apartment. The unpaid bills stacked on the counter. The voicemail from her mother's doctor she hadn't worked up the courage to return. For the first time in longer than she could remember, someone was offering her a way out. Even if it wasn't really hers to take. 3 weeks, Zora said finally. "And then you come back. You tell them the truth. All of it." Hannah nodded. "All of it. I promise." Neither of them knew yet how impossible that promise would be to keep. 3 weeks. That's all it was supposed to be. But the moment Zora stepped off the plane in Seoul, she understood that pretending to be someone else wasn't going to be as simple as wearing her sister's clothes. Hannah had 2 days to teach her a lifetime. They sat in a private room in Hannah's penthouse, the city glittering through floor-to-ceiling windows behind them, and Hannah spoke fast, like she was trying to pour 27 years of memory into Zora's head before time ran out. How to bow to elders, the exact angle, the exact pause. How to hold chopsticks the way their grandmother insisted was proper. Which spoon for which soup. When to speak, and more importantly, when not to. "Don't make eye contact with grandmother for too long," Hannah warned. "She reads people like books. If you stare too long, she'll know you're hiding something." "I am hiding something," Zora said. "I'm hiding an entire identity." Hannah didn't laugh. Then learned to hide it better than anyone ever has. They practiced Hannah's signature. The way she crossed her T's, the slight upward flick at the end of her name. They practiced her voice, softer than Zora's, more measured, every word chosen like it cost something. Zora was a fast study, sharper than even Hannah expected, but there was one thing no amount of practice could erase. The scar. A thin line on the inside of her left wrist, from a childhood accident Hannah never had. Hannah stared at it for a long moment. "Wear long sleeves," she finally said. "Always. Even at the wedding. Even in your sleep, if you have to." The first real test came the next morning. Breakfast with Halmiani. Zora had never felt fear like this. Not the kind that comes from danger, but the kind that comes from knowing one wrong word could collapse everything. She sat across from a woman with silver hair pinned into perfect stillness, dark eyes that moved slowly, deliberately, missing nothing. "You seem different today," Halmiani said, not looking up from her tea. Zora's heart stopped. "Different, Halmiani? Tired, maybe. The wedding stress." The old woman finally looked up, studying her granddaughter's face a moment too long. "You should rest more." Zora exhaled slowly, the breath she'd been holding finally escaping. "I will, Halmiani." It wasn't until later that night, alone in Hannah's room, that Zora let herself shake. She was good at this. Frighteningly good. But every hour she spent perfecting Hannah's walk, Hannah's voice, Hannah's silences, she felt something else happening too. A version of herself dissolving, replaced by a woman she was only supposed to borrow for 3 weeks. She thought about the wedding, about the man she was about to marry, a man she hadn't even met yet. She had no idea that 2 floors below her, Jisoo was asking his own assistant the same question he'd been asking for weeks. "Do you think she'll ever actually love me?" he asked quietly. "Or is this just another contract neither of us gets to walk away from?" Neither Zora nor Jisoo knew yet that the answer to that question was about to change everything. The morning of the wedding, Seoul woke up gray and quiet, like even the sky was holding its breath. Zora stood in front of a mirror in a dress she hadn't chosen, in a body that felt like her own, but a life that absolutely was not. Stylists moved around her, pinning, adjusting, painting her face into something polished and unreadable. She caught her own eyes in the mirror and barely recognized them. "You look just like her," one of the stylists murmured, almost to herself. "That's the problem," Zora thought. "I'm not supposed to." Hannah had vanished 2 nights earlier, slipping out a side door of the penthouse with a single suitcase and a one-way ticket to wherever the man she loved was waiting. No goodbye beyond a folded note left on the kitchen counter. "I'm sorry. 3 weeks. I promise. H." Zora had read it 4 times before burning it in the sink, terrified someone might find it. Now there was no version of this where she could back out. The car was already waiting. The hall was already filling with 300 guests who believed they were about to watch a granddaughter they'd known her entire life walk down the aisle. Halmiani found her before the ceremony, adjusting the veil herself with steady, practiced hands. "Nervous?" the old woman asked. "More than I've ever been," Zora admitted. And for once, it wasn't a lie. Halmiani's expression softened, just slightly. Marriage is not about certainty. It's about choosing to walk forward anyway. She paused, studying Zora's face a beat too long, the way she always did. "You have your mother's eyes today. I don't think I've ever noticed that before." Zora's chest tightened. If only you knew which mother. The music began. The doors opened. 300 faces turned to watch her walk down an aisle longer than any street she'd ever lived on, toward a man she'd spoken to exactly twice. Jisoo stood at the altar in a black suit, his expression carved from stone. The same unreadable mask Zora had seen every time they crossed paths in the penthouse hallways. But as she got closer, something in his face shifted. Just slightly. A flicker behind his eyes, like he was seeing something he hadn't expected to see. He didn't know why the woman walking toward him felt different. Softer somehow, in a way he couldn't name. He told himself it was nerves. His own. Or hers. It didn't matter which. The ceremony moved forward the way these things always do. Vows recited, promises made. Blessings spoken in formal Korean that Zora had memorized like lines in a play. She kept her sleeves long. She kept her eyes lowered exactly the right amount. She kept Hannah's voice in her mouth like a borrowed coat. Then came the moment she'd been dreading since the plane landed. "Do you take this woman to be your wife?" Jisoo paused, just half a second longer than tradition called for, before he answered. "I do." The officiant turned to Zora. "And do you take this man to be your husband?" Zora looked up. For one unguarded second, her eyes met Jisoo's, and something passed between them that neither of them could explain. A question, maybe, or a warning. "I do," she whispered. The room erupted into applause. Cameras flashed. Halmiani smiled from the front row. The first full smile Zora had seen from her in 3 weeks. Nobody in that room knew the truth. Not the 300 guests. Not Halmiani. Not even Jisoo. Standing inches away from his new wife, slipping a ring onto a hand that wasn't supposed to be wearing it. Somewhere on a different continent, in an apartment that no longer felt like home, Hannah sat alone, watching the clock, wondering if the life she'd just walked away from was the same one she'd ever be able to walk back into. 3 weeks had a way of stretching and collapsing all at once. For Hannah, every day away felt like borrowed time. She had the man she loved, Finally, fully, without anyone watching or judging or calculating what the relationship was worth to a merger. But freedom, she was learning, came with its own kind of weight. She thought of her grandmother's face. She thought of Jisoo, a man she never loved but never wished harm on either. Mostly, she thought of Zora, wearing her name, her life, her risk, and the promise she had made and not yet kept. For Zora, the 3 weeks had done something she never expected. She had stopped counting the days. It started small. The comfort of Jisoo's voice when he came home tired from work, asking about her day like he actually wanted to know the answer. The way Halmiani had begun softening toward her, sharing old stories, teaching her recipes that had nothing to do with the lie and everything to do with simply wanting to pass something down. Zora told herself it didn't mean anything. She told herself she was only playing a part, but a part of her had started to wonder what would happen if she never gave the part back. It happened on a night that wasn't supposed to mean anything. Jisoo had come home late, tie loosened, exhaustion written into every line of his face. Zora was still in the kitchen, finishing the last of a recipe she'd been trying and failing to perfect all week. Without a word, he set down his briefcase, rolled up his sleeves, and reached for the spoon in her hand. "You're doing it wrong," he said, the faintest trace of a smile breaking through. "It's gentler than that. Like this." His hand covered hers for a moment, guiding the motion. Neither of them moved away. The kitchen was quiet except for the low hum of the stove and the sound of their own breathing. Zora looked up at him, and for the first time since she'd arrived in Seoul, she wasn't thinking about the lie, the wedding, the borrowed name sitting heavy on her shoulders. She was just thinking about how close he was standing and how she didn't want him to step back. "Why does it feel like you actually see me?" she asked quietly, the question slipping out before she could stop it. "Not who you expected me to be. Just me." Jisoo studied her for a long moment, like he was trying to solve something he didn't have words for yet. "Maybe because I do," he said. He leaned in slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. She didn't. The kiss was soft, hesitant at first, like neither of them fully believed it was happening. And then it wasn't hesitant at all. For a few stolen seconds, there was no contract, no merger, no family expectation standing between them. Just two people who had somehow found something real inside a lie. When they finally pulled apart, Zora's hands were trembling. "This can't happen," she whispered, more to herself than to him. "Why not?" Jisoo asked. She didn't have an answer that didn't involve telling him the truth. So she said nothing at all. And neither of them moved away from each other for a long time after that. It was 3 days later that a knock came at the penthouse door. Zora opened it to find Hannah standing there. Same face, different exhaustion behind the eyes, a suitcase at her feet, and an expression caught somewhere between relief and dread. "I'm back," Hannah said simply. For a long moment, neither sister said anything. The apartment behind Zora, Hannah's apartment, Hannah's life, suddenly felt smaller than it had 3 weeks ago. "You're early," Zora finally said. "You said 3 weeks. "It's been 22 days, Hannah replied carefully. "I came back as soon as I could." Zora stepped aside to let her in, but something in her chest had tightened into a knot she didn't recognize. They talked late into the night. Hannah explaining what she'd found out there, the parts of her old life she'd finally let go of, the parts of herself she'd found waiting on the other side of the world. She was ready, she said, to come home, to tell Halmiani the truth, to take back what was hers. "And Jisoo?" Zora asked quietly. Hannah hesitated. "What about him?" "He's your husband now," Zora said. "Not mine. Once you tell the truth, that doesn't just disappear." Something in Hannah's expression shifted. Slow understanding dawning, the kind that comes too late. "Zora," she said carefully, "tell me you didn't." "I don't know what I did," Zora interrupted, her voice cracking just slightly. "I know I came here to borrow a life for 3 weeks. I didn't expect to actually start living it." The two sisters stared at each other. Same face, same blood, suddenly standing on opposite sides of a line neither of them had meant to draw. Downstairs, unaware of the conversation happening above him, Jisoo stared out his office window, turning over a question that had been sitting heavier on him every day since the wedding. He had married a woman he didn't choose. But somewhere in the last 3 weeks, he realized he had started to fall for the woman she'd somehow become. The morning after Hannah's return, the penthouse felt like a house built on a fault line. Quiet on the surface, but everyone inside it could feel the ground shifting. Hannah had made her decision. Today, she would tell Halmiani everything. Today, the lie that had carried her through a wedding, a marriage, 3 weeks of borrowed freedom, would finally end. She didn't expect her grandmother to already be waiting for her. Halmiani sat in the same chair she always sat in, tea untouched in front of her, her expression unreadable in a way that made Hannah's stomach drop before a single word was spoken. "Sit," Halmiani said quietly. Hannah sat. "Did you think I wouldn't notice?" the old woman asked, her voice steady, almost gentle, which somehow made it worse. A scar that appeared on a wrist that never had one. A laugh that changed. A woman who flinched every time I called her by her name, like she was waiting to be caught. Hannah's throat tightened. "Halmiani, I can explain. I know about your sister," Halmiani said simply. The room went silent. "I have known for 3 weeks," she continued. "I knew the moment she sat down across from me at breakfast and couldn't meet my eyes the way you always do. I am not as blind as you young people like to believe." Hannah stared at her grandmother, stunned. "Then why didn't you say anything? Why let it go this far? The wedding, all of it?" For the first time, something softened in Halmiani's face. Not anger, but a tiredness that seemed to carry decades inside it. "Because I made a choice like this once too," she said quietly. "A long time ago. I know what it costs a person to run from a life they didn't choose. I wanted to see what you would do with the chance, if I gave you the room to take it." She paused, folding her hands the way she always did before saying something that mattered. "What I did not expect," she added, "was for your sister to fall in love with the life, and the husband, meant for you." Hannah closed her eyes. "I know. Do you?" Halmiani's gaze sharpened. "Because now there is a decision sitting in this house that is no longer just yours to make." That evening, all 3 of them stood in the same room for the first time. Hannah, Zora, and Jisoo. The truth finally laid bare between them with nowhere left to hide. Jisoo looked at Zora first. There was no anger in his expression, only the slow, painful work of rearranging everything he thought he knew. 22 days, he said quietly. 22 days I was falling for a woman, and I didn't even know her real name. "It's Zora," she said softly. "I should have told you sooner. I'm sorry." He turned to Hannah. "And you, the wife I married, the woman standing in front of me now. I'm sorry too," Hannah said. "For all of it. The lie was never about hurting you. It was about surviving a life I never asked for." Jisoo was quiet for a long moment, looking between the 2 women who shared a face but had become, in his eyes, 2 entirely different people. "I don't know what happens to the marriage on paper," he finally said, "but I know I'm not in love with a name on a contract. I never was. I just didn't know which woman I'd actually fallen for until right now." He looked at Zora. Halmiani watched the 3 of them with the quiet patience of someone who had seen enough of life to know that the truth, however painful, was almost always better than the lie that came before it. "There will be consequences," she said finally. "A scandal like this does not stay quiet in families like ours. But there will also be a path forward. If all 3 of you are willing to walk it honestly, for the first time." Outside, the city lights of Seoul glittered on, indifferent to the lives being rebuilt inside one penthouse window. 2 sisters who had spent 27 years as strangers were now bound not just by blood, but by a secret only they would ever fully understand. And a man who had walked into a marriage as a transaction walked out of that room, having found something he never expected to find at all. But Halmiani's words lingered heavier than any of them realized in that moment. There will be consequences. She hadn't said what kind, because what none of them knew, not Hannah, not Zora, not even Jisoo, was that a scandal this big never stays contained to one family. Word was already beginning to spread through Seoul's elite circles. A rival business family, the one who had pushed so hard for this merger in the first place, was about to find out their golden contract had been signed by the wrong woman. And somewhere in this story, a man none of them had thought about in 27 years. The father the twins had never met. The reason Vanessa ran in the first place was about to resurface, with secrets of his own. Who would the family side with? The daughter they raised, or the daughter who saved her name? Would Jisoo's choice between two identical faces cost him everything he'd built? And what happens when the truth that just barely stayed inside one penthouse finally reaches the rest of the world? If you want to know what happens next, make sure you're subscribed and ready, because part 2 is coming. And trust me, this story is far from over.